So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone who has joined so far. Thank you very much for joining us today on for our first WWN Webinar Series webinar, focused on partnership and collaboration. Um, Thank you for joining us today promptly at 9 o'clock. Just a quick note for this webinar. If you would like to ask questions, please feel free to use the question and answer chat box. And then at the end of the session, we will also open it up for verbal questions if you would like. Please feel free to engage with our panelists and enjoy the webinar. Then, Dr. Edwards, I will hand over to you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Again, I want to welcome you to the first webinar for 2026. And if you don't already know about WWN, we are a nonprofit organization that's primarily focused on mentoring and networking, and with the goal of really promoting career advancement for women and men scientists across the globe. So today we are actually following up on our topic for the newsletter that was published in January of 2026. The primary topic was partnership and collaboration. And we really want to emphasize a vital role for partnership, for professional networks on advancing your science. From expertise and interdisciplinary collaboration to community and global connection, WWN is really highlighting how strong networks drive innovation and amplified impact and open new pathways for discovery. So this is the purpose of this webinar. We want to encourage you to expand your professional work, to engage into meaningful collaboration, and potentially develop some partnership that would advance science. So the way that we're going to carry out this webinar is a panel discussion. We have a set of questions that we'll pose our panelists. And then after their answers, after a portion of the we'll open the mic for you to ask your own question. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. King, my co-chair for WWN. She's going to introduce our panelists. Jean, take it over.
Thank you so much, and good morning again, and welcome to this webinar. We know that you're joining us from all over the world, and we're excited to have you here. I know that there's a time difference, so you have to stay up with me. And this is it. This is your job right now, is to stay up, because we have fabulous panelists here that we want to introduce. I have to say up front, there's no way I can introduce them. It will take the whole hour that we have devoted to this webinar. So I'm going to give you brief introductions. What I'm going to ask both panelists to do is at any time in the questions to sort of engage in all of the other pieces of their bios that they may want to speak about. So this is just a brief introduction so you have a sense of who they are. So I'd like to start off with Dr. Tracy Bale. She's the Ann Schutz Foundation Endowed Chair in Women's Integrated Mental and Physical Health at the Ludeman Center and Professor and Director for Intergenerational Stress and Health and the Director of the Sex Differences Research in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Colorado on Schutz Medical Campus. She has many accolades, as I point out, but one of them that we're going to talk about today and integrates with this specific session is that she's the past president of the International Brain Research Organization, IBRO, which I know you all know about, and she has been such a great collaborator and partner. We thought that she would probably be the best person to talk about some of the things we have done internationally and some of the things we have done together. So welcome, Tracy. We're so grateful to have you.
Thank you, Jean. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Similarly, we have Dr. Sadaf Ahmed. Dr. Sadaf Ahmed has been working with WWN for several years. She probably will tell you how many because I can't count them, and I'm so grateful for her partnership. She's a neuroscientist, psychologist, psychophysiologist, and global health scientist for over 22 years of experience in neuroscience education, stress biology, and translational mental health research. She heads the Psychophysiology Research Unit at the University of Karachi and founder of the Pakistan's first academic psychophysiology and neurofeedback program. For this particular discussion, we are speaking to her in her role as the president of Pakistan Society for Basic and Applied Neuroscience, known as PASBAN. We are grateful to have you, Sadaf, and thank you for saying yes to this session. I have to say one thing about you before we go on, because I was so excited that the Society of Neuroscience last year awarded Sadaf the Award for Education, which is not an easy award to get. We're so excited for you, and thank you so much for all of the work you do, not just in Pakistan, but with us in the US. So, to get started, Dr. Edwards would start with questions. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we're going to start the questions with Dr. Bale. So Tracy, we wanted to find out from you if you had a definition of the difference between partnership versus collaboration. It's a two-part question. And the second part would be, has any collaboration that you've had moved into a partnership?
Okay, Emmeline. So as I was reading through these questions ahead of time and thinking about them, I think intuitively they're very similar, right? We often interchange those terms. Let's collaborate. Let's become partners. I think at least there's probably differences culturally around the world. I'm just going to say in the Western world, I would say that the difference is largely something that's more established or even more legal in an entity as a partnership, where you might have a memorandum of understanding ironed out, some very concrete expectations on both sides, whereas collaboration can sort of evolve organically between individuals or organizations that have a common need. Has anything? Yes, I think there's many instances, again, speaking as the past president of IBRO, where I would just be over the 6 years that I was president, be at a conference or a meeting of some sort, and something, again, just organically starts as we both have this interest in making this better, or making resources more available, or communication improved. Why don't we work together? And then over time, and I'm going to use WWN as a really good example, in that I think with all my conversations with WWN, recognizing, and I think I would say this is a sign of good leadership or good foresight, is that you recognize incredible talent and incredible opportunities when something begins as a collaboration, a mutual drive toward an end, but recognizing if we formalize this into a partnership, then we get a better structure out of it, and we can both see what we're going to be doing. We can share resources, both get visibility and credit, but it's very clear who's doing what. And I would say that, yes, WWN would be, for those who don't know, WWN actually started sort of out of IBRO, and then consequentially, before my time anyway, was sort of cast aside a bit and formalized, that was brought back in as a partner because of all the incredible leadership that you all have.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And I'm just going to have a shameful plug in right now. Because of this project-based partnership that we have with IBRO for 2026, we are so excited that we're expanding this partnership, because we are going to start what we're calling skill-based programs. Those are beyond a simple webinar. These would be 5 module sessions that we will be conducting between May and October of 2026. And the first one will be on research management, and the second one will be on research dissemination. So I hope all of you will look out for this announcement. We think we're going to have an exciting set of programming that will really help you with your professional advancement. So Jean.
Fantastic, Emmeline.
Thank you. Go for the next question.
So I saw Sadaf looking like she had an answer to this also. So Sadaf, do you want to answer Dr. Edwards' question? And I also saw that Dr. Chantella Hedge did join us, and I will introduce her after we finish this question.
Thank you.
Something similar to the definition, of course, as Tracy already mentioned, that collaboration actually always begins organically, and it's much more an intellectual alignment and why people coming together for shared goals, scientific interest, or maybe social goal, and we do this. But for the collaboration part, it is much more structural rather than relational. And for me, the best example, of course, is WWN when I started as a PhD undergraduate, and how we took all the initiatives together, and how I always asked that, wow, this is the scientific interest and this is the area where we can have the intellectual alignment, and we did. There are a lot of partnership. Let me explain one very great partnership that I bring it to the working in university is like a collaboration that led to be the structural partnership, like signing the MOU with expertise gradually evolved into formal partnership, is between cognitive psychology lab at University of Toronto and psychophysiology research lab at University of Karachi. What we started as sharing expertise about the neurodiversity innovative peer learning platform. I saw an opportunity to connect with science, technology, and need here in Pakistan as well. And that was actually, they were working on the perfectly great project. So we started structuring the MOU, defining research objectives, and educate the educators about these strategies. And once we shared the MOU, we structured the MOU, we signed it officially, and since then we have presented outcomes internationally, included Stanford neurodiversity project, presented there, actively engaged educators, and it's a winning project. So for me to give the example is because that collaborations, we always start as a relational, organically very good will projects, or we can say relations, but in partnership it's always structural, it's more objective, and we have very defined certain rules and regulations for taking this forward. So this is one of the examples that I would like to quote. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I would like to take this opportunity to have our other panelists be introduced. So Dr. Shantella Hedge is the professor and consultant and a neuropsychologist at the National Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience in Bangalore, India. She's a consultant at the Clinical Neuropsychology Unit and consultant in charge at the Neurorehabilitation Services Unit, specializes in neuropsychological assessment, cognitive rehabilitation, and the intersection of cognition, emotion, and neuroscience. She's the principal investigator and Wellcome Trust DBI India Alliance Clinical and Public Health Intermediate Fellow. As I told you all before with other panelists, if I introduced her, it will take us the hour. However, in this regard, she is also the organizing secretary of the International Conference on Clinical Neuropsychology and Cognitive Neuroscience. That's going to be held in Bangalore, and a plug for that because WWN will be represented, and we're leaving for India soon. And thank you so much for joining us. We know you're in the middle of planning this huge conference and wasn't sure if you'll be able to get a minute to come on. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'll start with you for the first question, since you haven't had a minute to sort of get to know everybody yet. And the next question up is, tell us about a collaboration that surprised you in how well it succeeded.
Do I go in, Jean?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. And my sincere apologies for joining in a bit late. Because of this conference, my inbox is inundated and I really finding it hard to keep track of many things, and sorry for coming in late. And I'm really looking forward to this collaboration on you all visiting India and Bengaluru. It's precious for me. It's very special for me. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in person. Now, coming to something that surprised in terms of collaboration, I can give example of WWN itself, how beautifully it kind of grew organically. And I was just thinking while Dr. Sadaf was speaking that you went to a Society for Neuroscience meeting, you met Dr. Anirudh Patel, and then it was just an instantaneous connection that happened. I was so pleasantly surprised, I would say. And from that point, to coming to Worcester when I was in Boston, to have that meeting with all the panelists, discussing with Emmeline. And at least I've met you, but I'm yet to meet Emmeline in person, but the connection is so deep now, as though I've known her for such a long time. And then to have this meeting here for the first international conference, that itself, I say, is such a beautiful journey, and how beautifully an collaboration can go on. I only look forward to, I'm sure it's just the beginning, where a lot more systematic research collaboration or training collaboration will emerge out of this. And all the meetings that I've attended of WWN, I don't miss. If I have missed, it's for very rare or very inability to excuse myself in a very rare condition. But every time I've had a meeting with WWN, I feel strengthened with that we are giving each other that positive energy that we are doing the right thing. So I think so far that's the biggest surprising way how it has evolved and where we are today.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. I'm the serious extrovert. I talk to everybody, so thank you. It's working for something. I don't know why. All of them are laughing because they know I talk too much. Anyway, Dr. Tracy Bale, similarly, what has been a surprise for you?
Oh my goodness, so many surprises. I was just thinking through all of the different partnerships that evolved when I was president of IBRO. You know, one of them was with the Wellcome Trust in the UK for the Neuroscience Capacity Accelerator program. That, again, the more you would, and I think I'm speaking as the former president of a huge organization. And I know on this webinar, we have individuals who may be thinking about their organization or maybe just thinking about their own career, because I know we have a lot of junior individuals on the webinar. So how does this apply to them? And I think a lot of it is, and I know this is true for WWN, is that when you establish yourself or your organization as being professional, as being that people can rely on you, that you deliver what you promise to deliver. So I think there's entities there that are important for an organization, but I'm speaking also to especially our junior people on here. If you say you're going to do something, you need to do it. If you say you're going to show up, you need to show up. And that people need to rely on you. And then people build trust, and that's where an organization becomes more likely. In the case of IBRO, as we worked really hard to establish that we are a professional organization, that we have reliable deliverables, et cetera, that the Wellcome Trust reached out and asked to begin exploring these partnerships. And one of which came out of that was the Neuroscience Capacity Accelerator that I'm guessing many of our attendees have participated in and still are, which has turned out to be, initially we weren't really sure where this was going to go, because it has a lot of lived experience, and it's supposed to be building possibilities for where programs might go in low and middle income countries. And I think it's shown itself to be very successful. I think that was a surprise of how this was going to work. Not a surprise was how amazing the IBRO staff ran it. I will just say that they are amazing. The other example I would like to give is SONA, so the Societies of Neurosciences in Africa, which when I became president and attended for the first time, I think the first IBRO president to attend one of the SONA meetings, I was blown away by not just the level of science, that was not surprising, but by the integration that happened at this conference across the continent, but also bringing in the community and understanding the issues that were local brought into the science. And I will say that surprised me and has really driven me bringing back to the US, thinking about things locally that are happening and how do we integrate those things into our local science. And so those have evolved, I think, in more partnerships and collaborations within IBRO and between SONA.
Thank you so much. Great answer. And I hope the young people on the panel, on the webinar is listening carefully, because yes, it's not just about organizations. You start off as individuals and it grows. So Sadaf, answer to a surprise.
There are so many surprises, but let's start from when we revived PASBAN in Pakistan. And it seems like it is difficult to sustain, and where we start, and what are the fears that what funding was limited, and the building to build the meaningful collaborations and engagement seemed very ambitious. We begin with the commitment rather than resources, and we did and quickly develop collaborations that expanded beyond our expectations. Let me tell you about the World Women in Neuroscience, IBRO, ALBA Network, Science Bridge, Canada Pakistan Research Council. And these are not transactional engagements actually, they are very value driven alliances. And this not only surprised me that how we worked through our path in PASBAN, and just bring the PASBAN for not only being the biggest ecosystem in Pakistan for the neuroscience, but also one of the young scholars in Pakistan suddenly had direct access to the global platform. This is one of the achievement, and this surprised me most, that how all of you, as IBRO, as WWN, as ALBA, and as others, you only not only give the opportunities to all the youngsters and all the people who are approaching from Pakistan. This is how the collaboration built. And one of the other that surprised me was I was actually organizing one of the lead conferences on endorsing health science research on World Health Day, and we used to seek for collaborations. And somehow I approached World Health Organization that, hey, this is us, and this is, we are working on the same goals, on sustainable development goals. And on sixth conference back in 2016, the WHO was one of the collaborator, and since then we are collaborating with them annually. So these both of the collaborations have so much stories to tell, because it is rooted in authenticity maybe, and the purpose that global communications and communities should be like this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you, for great answers. I'm turning it over to Dr. Edwards now for the next question.
So we heard all the beauties and virtues of great collaborations and partnerships. So I hate to bring this down to that level, but we need to face reality. What are some of the challenges that you have experienced with partnership and collaboration? And essentially, what are some of the factors that have led to such challenges? So let's start with Shantala.
With regard to research collaborations is something I can share some of my experience in terms of challenges. The biggest thing is there is so much to do, and sometimes there are very little team members, and also the work culture, the work demands that each institute has on an individual is so different. And sometimes communicating that, explaining that also takes some time. Of course, only then you will initiate your collaboration. That is one thing. Second is some of the challenges inherent to a particular institute, or maybe it's the country rules and regulations. For example, the time taken to get a ethical clearance, or to get the data collection going, the time deadlines that we have to keep. So in my experience so far, especially when you start off with a new area, like I started with the work on music, neuroscience, music cognition, the interest from many different directions and did come through. But it was very hard for me to choose which ones I'll be able to focus on, which one I'll not be able to work on, and then to keep our own, as a researcher or as a clinician, what is my core focus. So it's the fine balance between your own journey along with the collaboration, which should not take you away in multiple directions. That is one thing. And connected to that is, as I said, there are some differences in work culture. And it could be to the point that you're already mentioned in the document, cultural differences perhaps, or, sometimes when some researchers have different experiences having worked elsewhere, or you come back, And then to teach that and to inculcate that in your team also takes a lot of time. So to curate your team, to have that team, many challenges, I would say, in that regard.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll come back if there is time, but so much to say, but these are the key points that I wanted to mention.
I'm going to add a twist to that question and say, Tracy, can you comment on potential impact of power dynamics when you establish a collaboration or a partnership?
Ooh, good question, Emmeline. Again, I'm thinking both as an organization and for everybody on here who's trying to learn something to benefit their career trajectory, especially when you're just starting out. And I think, again, when I think about my experience in going around the world to different conferences and meeting so many passionate and talented and driven young scientists trying to navigate wherever they are in the world of how to, and I think that the interest in having collaborations, especially if you have one expertise or resource and you know that you maybe financially, I think for a lot of individuals around the world, financially is a big issue for their research or career. How do you partner with somebody so that you can offer them something to make it an enticing collaboration or partnership? And I think so, one, speaking to power dynamics, especially to this younger career generation, how do you establish what you're getting yourself into without turning over everything? And I think we've all experienced that moment where you did all the work and someone else took all the credit. So I think I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, Emmeline, which is make sure that you don't get out in front of your skis. And for those who don't ski, let me tell you what that means. When you are skiing downhill, maybe you watch the Olympics, if you bend forward too much and get out over in front of your ski or ahead of your skis a little bit, you're going to fall over. And what I mean by that is you're really excited about such an opportunity. You've just met somebody and they're actually interested, and it's easy to get a little ahead of yourself in maybe committing too much. Maybe you don't have the time. And I've seen this happen many times where somebody offers up too much and they aren't able to deliver it. And then that just makes you look bad. And now you've lost that opportunity. So don't overpromise, but it's also very difficult. And many of us have a tough time, especially if you have any sort of insecurities about who you're working with or what you're doing. You have to have expectations. Not just for yourself, that's easy. Have expectations for the other person in your partnership or collaboration, and make sure that those are very well defined ahead of time. Write them down, review them often. Hey, we said at the beginning, I was going to do this and you were going to do this. So let's make sure we're both committed to making this work. I will say one thing I learned as IBRO president was in that expectation, one of the things you need to have is that who's going to get, and we all know everything is about visibility. And if you're going to do all the work and somebody's off talking about your research collaboration or talking about your professional partnership, and everything, every sign, everything is all about them. And now you realize, wait a minute, I guess we didn't establish ahead of time in this partnership or collaboration who's getting the visibility and who's getting the credit. And I think it's really easy to get excited and to jump into things, Emmeline, and that power dynamic can make that even worse. Establish upfront. This is so exciting. I'm all in. I have all these deliverables. I'm going to work very hard for this. And I need for my career. And then establish what those things are. Make sure that they're really well defined. And I really said, write them down so that you can go back to them again and again.
Thank you so much, Tracy. That was excellent. Anybody else wants to jump in and add anything to what Tracy just brilliantly covered?
About power dynamics or maybe the challenges as well, I think I would like to add that the cultural differences and the hierarchy and we as a collaborators and as partners, we need to understand that global collaborations can maybe unintentionally they overlook local realities here, and we have so many challenges: research timelines, funding cycles, administrative systems. Every communication style is different here, And there are a lot of challenges here when we talk about hierarchy, when we sit on the tables, and especially as a female leader, when you put up the ideas, when you bring the ideas, when you bring the initiative. So the context is always different. The challenges are different because culturally, when we live in countries like Pakistan, it's always a male dominated environment where you have to experience gender related challenges, you have to make the formal negotiations at the high level and institutional discussion. And for me, what I have learned is that complex partnerships always require cultural awareness and structural clarity of both the partners, because in Europe or US, the systems navigate very differently. But especially for women leaders, navigating multiple systems and doing such kind of collaboration is all about emotional intelligence and cultural awareness, and it's required courage actually, because it's my first hand experience that people always ask not only about the transparent communication or mutual intellectual ownership, but also you have been questioned a lot that what is the context here and what we are doing. So I think that if consciously structured, the partnership always happen automatically after collaboration, but it always mostly time sounds very competitive, and we have to work very competitively rather than being collectively and community wise.
Oh, Dr. Edwards, you're still muted.
Jean, I'm going to turn it over for the next question.
All right. Thank you so much. Great answers. I'm thinking about it myself, so my brain is trying to process all the things that you're saying, which makes so much sense, which is why I think World Women in Neuroscience makes so much sense as an organization, because different things and contexts and culture make the same thing look quite different. Power dynamics here and power dynamics different places just look differently. As you could probably tell from my accent, I was born in the Caribbean, and power dynamics there look different from power dynamics here. And then when you were living between both worlds, where you were raised one place and you're practicing someplace else, and you're trying to figure out which one of those things you're in any minute, is quite challenging. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate it, having lived it. So one of the things we would like to know right now is to talk about what is the success metrics. So especially as Tracy has been pointing out, there are lots of young people on the panel, on the webinar. How do you know something is being successful? I mean, is it just, oh, I feel good, this looks like it's going in the right direction? Should you think about what the success metrics should be for a project before you start it? How would you know? How would you measure it? Like, we're scientists, we measure everything. How do you measure success? Like, what are some of the parameters that you have consciously or unconsciously as you go forward? What are the things you should be thinking about? Chantella, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I think what some of the points that Dr. Tracy mentioned was absolutely hitting the nail on the head. When you start a project or a collaboration, and especially projects, when I handled the Welcome Grant India Lens project, the outcomes are so clearly defined. It could be in terms of research publications, or it could be with regard to public awareness programs or personal career growth. As in fellow, what is my career growth? So writing it down really helps. And I think organizations, well-established organizations, I'm sure like IBRO or Welcome, or some of the organizations, when they give certain research support funding, they do have certain parameters which are quite well thought of. But as a young researcher, when I started, I felt that was so helpful. First, to even identify mentors, for example, being mentored, and it may not be a quantitative outcome there, but the qualitative outcome is how much mentoring time did you get? Where did you improve yourself? Where did you see you growing from point 1 to point 2 or point 3, that you had a trajectory kept on? Of course, like any research projects, publication is something that goes without saying. But I think there are so many other things which may not be quantifiable, but that we learn. Sometimes we learn through hard way, who not to collaborate with, what topics not to take. What are the, especially I suffered during COVID, but I had Welcome India Lens, which was so kind and so, because I had anxiety. What am I going to write in the report if I were to talk about outcome? And every time I felt apologetic, but the way response was given, or the reviewers had to, gave such positive responses, that itself was a learning experience for me. I think that was also part of success for me, because I learned how to be maybe next in future. If I am a reviewer for someone, how will I be? That's also an outcome for me. Of course, then subsequent research collaboration, you will be much more equipped in terms of planning. And I personally follow what Tracy mentioned. I write it down. Personally, what should be my growth? 5 years from now, where do I see myself? 10 years from now, where do I see myself? Second is, along with me, who do I take along? How many juniors have I nurtured? How many I have taken further? Because that is not quantified at all. Whereas only some grants ask, how many junior research fellows or how many PhDs did you mentor? I think that is also something that invariably should be counted as success for any researcher, and especially women. I think WWN also, the motto is that we give strength to each other. And with all this, I also feel that any research that we take up should also help us grow as human beings. It could be the research question that we ask for a larger purpose, not every time which is only lab-based. I know I got this impact factor, I got these many citations. Fair enough, it takes a lot of hard work to get there. But end of, let's say, when I'm 65, now 45, keep asking, at my age when I'm 65, I want to look back, not just looking at my citation or the impact factor, but how much did I contribute to patients or clinical care, or how many lives did I help, be it in my clinical setting or with my students. That also should be as a success parameter.
Love that. Thank you so much. Yes, each one has to teach one. We all have to bring somebody else up, right? We can't just be about ourselves. And 45, you have so much time. Go for it.
Thank
Really
you.
grateful. I wish I could say that, but that's a longer story. But one of the things I wanted to say to everybody please start getting your questions together. I don't know how much you've seen Michaela. Sometimes people wait until the end of it and forgot the question that they had. You could start putting your questions in the chat so that as soon as we get through the session, which is probably one more question, we want to go to your questions because this is about you. We had some questions to guide this session, but honestly, we want to hear from you. What are some of the things you'd want to hear from our esteemed panelists? So anybody else wants to answer that question, or else I'll turn it over to Dr. Edwards. So Emily?
Emily, you're
You're
still
muted. You're muted.
I think we covered a lot of that next question. However, if one of you has an outstanding example of specific benefits that they've gotten from a partnership or a collaboration, it would be great to hear that. Whether on a personal level or an organizational level.
Emmeline, I just wanted to chime in because I think Shantella did such an amazing job covering, and I think speaking as a very senior scientist on this webinar, that the goals and what you consider, I think Jean phrased as how would you know if you're successful, and speaking to this, it's different at different career stages, right? I mean, what's successful at the assistant professor level could be something very different at the senior level. And I think I agree. Like, you want to look back and know that this is a tough job, and you do it because you love it. And otherwise you'd go, make coffee at Starbucks or something, right? You do it because you love it. You love the mentoring, you love the interactions, the collaborations, but you love the discovery, right? I mean, we're here because we love discovery and being able to have impact. I think Chantal is and I agree. Like, looking back, you want to know that something you did when you spent those grant dollars or worked all those late nights amounted to something that left something behind is so important. The one piece I want to make sure, because I'm looking through the participants on the webinar and seeing so many friends. We also have a lot of senior people on here too. And I think I want to speak a little bit of when somebody comes along who is reaching out to you or has said, let's do a collaboration, or is being a mentor, embrace that and ask yourself, am I stepping up on my side of this collaboration and partnership? I think we spend a lot of time speaking to where are the opportunities, how do you connect with people, where do you find the resources? The really important other side of that is you have to show up too. And if you overcommit yourself to connecting with too many people, and then therefore you're not responsible. And I'm going to say that I've had examples of this through the years. I can think of a couple instances where trying to help somebody who passionate, super talented, but incredibly disorganized, and tried to help this individual so that you could become reliable, because that is professional. You got to show up when you said you're going to show up, and you got to do the work. And so ask yourself in these partnerships and collaborations, check in with yourself. Am I showing up? The best thing you can do for any partnership or collaboration is be organized and be prepared. If you have a meeting coming up on your calendar next week, don't wait until 5 seconds before the meeting to review your notes or think about what you're going to talk about, because it's their time and it's your time. So I just want to make sure that we're talking about both sides. For your career success, ask yourself, are you also showing up and doing the work?
Excellent point. Thank you for that, Tracy. So I think we have about 20 minutes. It might be good to go to the questions at this point. So Michaela, I'm gonna turn it over to you so that you could, organize this.
Of course. Thank you very much so far for this incredibly insightful discussion. As a early career researcher, I've gained so much wisdom and knowledge. So thank you very much, everyone who's been a part of it. We have 2 questions so far. So please, attendees, if you are wanting to post your questions in the Q&A, please feel free to go ahead. If you would like to raise your hand and verbally ask your question, you're also more than welcome to. I will then give you the floor to speak. So please feel free with either of those options. I have one question. The first question, not directed to a specific panelist, but in general, how do you go through peer pressure, or how do you get through peer pressure in your PhD, where you're also doing some or more amounts of hard work, but not necessarily getting any publications, and it can be quite depressing. So would someone like to start with that question? One of the panelists are you willing to take on that question? So I think the first question is, how do you get through the peer pressure during your PhD when there is such a high amount of workload and perhaps not as many publications or rewards or benefits? Anyone happy to answer this?
I think Shantala would like to answer.
No. Absolutely. Anybody can go in. I mean, I'm happy to share my experience as well. I think again, this at different stages we go through different kind of challenges. The peer pressure doesn't end even if you're an assistant professor or an associate, or you go to professor level. The pressure is of different kind. So how do I perceive that matters? As a psychologist, I can tell you that you just need to understand where that pressure is coming from. Is it from the external world or from internal world? So that can help, thereby understanding that, am I going to give in to this peer pressure that's coming from the external source? It could be with publication or something else. One is to talk to the mentor. Of course, practical issues will be there. So talk to your mentor, talk to your guide, and discuss, these were my goals, these were my timelines. How am I doing with regard to that? So focusing on your path will reduce yourself comparing to somebody else's path. And that will help throughout your career, throughout your life, that I'm not comparing my path with somebody else's. That can bring down some amount of stress. Second is, if your publications are not happening, focus on the problem rather than comparing it with others. As to why is it that your papers have got rejected for some reason? Is the research question not okay? That's why discussing with your mentor will really help. And if it is other than just publication and your work per se, I think peer pressure should always be handled from a multi multi-perspective. Maybe my personality, what are my standards of comparison of who I am? I mean, it can go into more psychological realm. So talking to a friend, talking to your someone you really care, and they can give you some advice that can help. Having specific goals that you take joy in small gains, small steps that you have achieved, that can also be very helpful, where it can be rewarding for yourself. That I learned something today. I did not reach publication, but I learned something today, or I learned something this month. And this was my gain. So rewarding yourself with those small successes will really keep the motivation going.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that answer. Very comprehensive. Do any of the other panelists want to add anything? No, Chantal did a fantastic job with that answer. So if everyone is happy, and I see.
I'm glad we have a psychologist on here.
Yes.
Good job.
Incredibly. So there is one more question in the Q&A, but I also see Anna has her or his hand up. So I will, yes, unmute, and you're welcome to ask your question.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Hello, this is Dr. Anna Askari from Pakistan.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Thank you. So I have a question. It is, what structural barriers still limit the collaboration opportunities for women in neuroscience, and how can institutions redesign systems to fix them and not just mentor around them?
Anyone willing to raise their hand and answer that question?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question? I think I missed the tail end of it.
Yeah, so my question is basically, what structural barriers still limit collaboration opportunities for women in neuroscience, and how can institutions redesign systems to fix them and not just mentor around them?
Do you have any examples of structural barriers that you're thinking of that we could address, or?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, for say in Pakistan, right, there are so many structural barriers that if somebody wants to get into the opportunities, especially in the, the area of neuroscience, we have to go through different eligibility criteria, and ours matches different, and, the collaborative opportunities that we got, they have a different eligibility criteria, and we get a lot of clashes and things. So there, there's these structural barriers out there. So that's what exactly I'm talking about.
I'm wondering whether Sadaf wants to address that, because this is very specific to Pakistan. Sadaf?
Yes. Thank you, Anna, for the question. And I think I know Anna, how she's concerned about the things that we don't have, because Anna is much more interested in having the structures established that we are trying to do since last decade, but there are no structured programs on neuroscience in Pakistan yet. So as Pakistan Society of Basic and Applied Neuroscience, we are looking for collaborations, and we have developed these structured partnerships as well. But not the degree-oriented program or the structured programs where they can be mentored, and the output should be produced as well at the same you can say the capacity. So when we encourage our student to take programs or short courses or short trainings outside Pakistan and bring the collaboration, and we do some exchange programs. I myself was part of certain exchange programs. It's what is not fulfilling their need or their urge to learn more about neuroscience, because beside a lot of efforts, still we don't have the structured neuroscience program, unfortunately.
Can I ask a question then? Sadaf, have potentially departments come together to offer even joint program, let's say physiology or, biology program, blending together and, trying to develop a joint program with neuroscience?
Yes, let me give you an example. One of the effort becomes successful in my field, where psychophysiology I have developed the first psychophysiology lab in Pakistan. And psychophysiology was the alien word in Pakistan because no one was actually doing something. So what happened that we approached our professors here in US and Professor Dr. Richard Sherman, Professor Dr. Jerry DeVore from the platform of Brain Behavior Medicine Foundation. They not only collaborated, they offered the whole training program in very less amount and they sponsored the whole program and they trained first 10 psychophysiologists in Pakistan. And they not only did that, they also help us to build the lab structurally where they supported us for the biofeedback and neurofeedback devices and EEG devices. So one kind of collaboration has done and we did the postgraduate diploma program with Brain Behavior Medicine Foundation. So this is how we are taking initiatives and we are trying to build the structured program because we don't have the resources, not only resources in the physical way, but also the intellectual way. So that's how we can do collaboration in the hybrid programs or something like that.
I want to offer up, thank you for saying that. I wanted to offer up something that would be US, structural, as the former Dean of Arts and Sciences. One of the things that we looked at was promotion rates for women versus men, and that is institutional. And what I found worked there in my experience is getting together, say, all of the women who hadn't been promoted yet or have trying to figure it out, and form a collaboration within your institution around people who want to do it. And what they did was then write for a grant. We had, at that point, NSF had the advanced grant. They looked at it and then they looked at the data. Because I feel when we're in science, we really have to present data for things to move. So when you find there is some institutional barrier of any kind, anywhere, the first thing I think we should do is get together a group who could look more deeply. Is this really an institutional barrier? Is it just me? Is it somebody else? Do we have the data to support this is an institutional barrier? And then once the data in hand, you could approach the administration.
Yeah.
But approaching the administration saying, I feel or I think never works. Like, don't even waste your time. You have to have data to engage them in a meaningful way. You may get one person who thinks, oh yeah, I think Jean is right, but you have to come with your data. And when you're able to do that, you move the conversation to the next level. And the other thing I want you to do is to think about allyship. It's not just you. If you're not getting promoted at the rate that you should, it's hurting the entire institution. It's hurting the men in the institution. It's hurting the students in the institution because you are not able to take your career to that level. They're suffering from that also. So I really want us to move beyond this is our issue, meaning just the women or just the group, whatever that group is, to understand that this is an issue embedded in a larger system. And what is that ecosystem? How do you benefit it? So you realize there are allies everywhere. But sometimes they themselves don't know that this is happening, right? So that's why data is important. Then you could take it to your allies and go, look, this is the data. And they are sometimes very surprised. Because if you're not being impacted by it, you're probably not looking at it because you're not impacted by it. So I would suggest that independent of what's happening, let's start with identifying the issue, identifying aligned bodies that would help us to get those issues to a research level that we could take to the institutional level. But never give up just because there is not a structure in place. We are the ones we're waiting for. Once we figure out what we need to do, then we could help put the structure in place. So no matter what it is, no matter where you are, we all have different barriers. I just wanted to throw that out as something I've seen work and I think could work in different places.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you very
Michaela?
much. Yes, thank you very much for that comprehensive answer. Anna, I hope that answers your question. I do see your hand is raised again, but I'm not sure if that is accidental. We do have
No, I have another question, I'm sorry. And
we
yes,
do
that
have
probably-
we do unfortunately have 7 other questions currently in the chat box. Do you mind if I ask some other questions, and if we have
Yeah,
time, we
sure.
can...
Please go ahead. And thank
Great.
you for
Thank
the
you.
answer. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for asking. So I will shift back to the Q&A. We do have 8 questions and only 6 minutes, so let's see how far we move through. So first question or next question by Kosha. How do you evaluate whether a collaboration is truly aligned with your vision?
Hmm.
Would any of the panelists or moderators
I think just a quick answer to that one, Michaela, is that you have to ask yourself to sit down and I think someone earlier mentioned on this webinar that having a 5-year plan, no matter what stage you are at in your career, like where do I want to be in 5 years? Sorry, husband's playing with the dog. Where do you want to be in 5 years? And what is your plan to get there is so important. And it's going to be different at a training stage, for instance, of your career versus at full professor stage, let's say. And so how do you want to get to that point? And then you can ask yourself, if it's aligned with your vision, you'll know what your vision is. And I always tell my trainees this, if you know where you kind of want to be, the direction you want to be in 5 years, and something comes on your radar, does that fit within how you're going to get there? Or is that a real sidetrack that is going to distract you? And that's, I think, the best way to tell if it's within your vision.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Would anyone like to add, or I think that was a very comprehensive answer by Dr. Bale.
Yeah, I think we have to go through. We have so many
Yes,
that probably just
exactly.
one person can answer.
Then Cecilia, hi, thank you very much for all your input. What has your experience been with acquiring new skills throughout your career, particularly in data analysis? And do you have any tips? Is there any...
Yes, get all the experience you can. Yes, 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 yes. Anywhere you can grab it. Grab the experience.
Gain as much exposure as possible. Perfect. Then how will intellectual property or credit be shared in collaborations?
I want to say that's something you have to know upfront. When you have this, all of the stuff that Tracy just told us about, when you're defining what that will be, one of the definitions would be, if we have intellectual property, how would we manage it? So that you both are aware of it prior to even starting the grant. So you need to do that upfront.
Yeah.
100%, because you lose control of your IP, then you just did all that work for nothing and someone else took it. So define it up front. Any possibility, data is IP. So define it up front.
Fantastic. Then next, do you have anything to add on neuromarketing research? Like possible opportunities once I finish my PhD? I'm not sure who has posted this because it is anonymous, but do you have anything to add on neuromarketing research? And my goal is to go for industry, not for academia. That's the added portion of that question.
Good now.
Any comment on that? Otherwise, we could perhaps then turn it over to an email chain if need be. Then I will move on. Another anonymous.
So, Michaela, I do want to say that if you have a question that hasn't gotten answered because we can't, please email us and we will continue the conversation with the panelists and ourselves.
Perhaps shall we ask one more question or end for the closing? One more question. So final question then, thank you for this opportunity. What qualities or accomplishments do you typically look for in a postdoctoral fellow? During my PhD, I tested a herbal intervention for postpartum depression in a preclinical rat model. And then it goes on to explain the research. Would a preclinical background be considered suitable for a clinical research lab? And what additional skills would strengthen my application? Is this perhaps another question for email chain?
I would just say that again, if you have a 5-year plan of sort of thinking where you want to be, you can answer that question for yourself. Does getting some clinical experience add to where you want to be in 5 years? If not, if that's not the direction you want to go, then no. If it is the direction that you can see, and find some mentors who are doing the thing that you think you want to be, direction you want to be, and ask them directly if that would be helpful.
And just to add, also gain the additional skills. Getting into clinical research, requires that you expand your knowledge about how to do clinical research. So add some more skills to your toolbox.
And there are
Fantastic.
lots of these online that you
Yeah.
could read about what the clinical skills are and data management and recruitment and retention and all the things you may need to know. There are ways to sort of start getting into that. And I have to say, one of the things, I was a pre-clinical researcher, still sort of do both. I took a postdoc that was all clinical, so I could really understand it. So you go into a postdoc lab and they understand I didn't know anything. So they were willing to train me in it, and it worked out.
We are
Another
at,
thing is to keep, sorry, Yamini.
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Shantala. Sorry.
No, another thing that might help is to look out for people who you think are the top-notch researchers in that field, who have inspired you, whose work has inspired you, and not just read their research work, but also do some homework about how their trajectory has been. Sometimes you learn from that. You may not know them personally, but there'll be enough now to you have Google search, you have a lot of data about people, what their trajectory has been. That's also helpful.
Excellent.
Incredibly. Thank you. Thank you, Shantala. That is a very helpful tip. Then I think we are
We are
at the end
time.
of the. Mhm.
So I want to thank our panelists. I mean, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your experiences. And thank you to Michaela for organizing this webinar. Before I leave, I just wanted to expand a little bit on the point that Jean made about allyship. I wanted to let everybody know that WWN will be at FANS in July, and we do have a session on the various aspects of how allyship can impact your professional development. So if you're going to be in Barcelona, do come to the WWN session. Thanks again. It's been amazing, and we'll be in touch.